Well, good morning to all of you out there, shooters and reloaders. It's Fortune Cookie 45LC coming to you from the Hot Lead Zone. And today, some real good news for all of us 45 Colt shooters and 45 ACP revolver shooters, because Starline has announced the introduction of a new brass. And that is, they call it the 45 Cowboy Special. Now, Walter Bunning informed me that Starline has this out there, so I checked at Midway USA and they don't have any. It's that new. According to Walter Bunning, if you contact Starline directly, you can get some 45 Cowboy Special brass. Well, I didn't do that. My thinking is I'll just wait for Midway USA to get a hold of some, and then I'll order from Midway USA. Well, Walter took one step further, and he knows that I'm doing this thing on 45 caliber semi-wad cutter stumpy bullets now, and so he said, well, I'm going to send you some 45 Cowboy Special Starline brass. So when Walter told me he was going to send me some, I'm thinking, goodness, what could this 45 Special Cowboy brass, what would it be like? So I'm kind of anticipating and guessing what it might be. So to look at the thinking process, let's look at all the different kinds of brass casings that we have for our revolvers. And these are all common and used in cowboy action also. What you see here are also some pistols that are very popular for cowboy action shooting, and also the Smith & Wesson Model 25 double action in 45 Colt. So these are all 45 Colt handguns. The only difference is that this particular one right here is a Ruger convertible Blackhawk. It also has a cylinder for 45 ACP. And this shouldn't have come into the thinking because it's not a 45 Colt. It takes the 45 ACP brass. Now, all of you out there have a pretty good nab on these different types of cartridge cases, but let's go over them. Right here you see a 357 Magnum, and what happened was it came from the 38 Special case originally, and they lengthened it to make the 357 Magnum, but the 38 Special came from the 38 Short Colt, which became the 38 Long Colt. Don't have one of those here, but the 38 Long Colt's right between this case and that case, and then the 38 Special came from that. So you have different lengths in the 38 357 family. Now, when you go to the next one, you got the 41 Magnum, and Starline came out with a 41 Special. So the 41 Magnum came about all on its own. It didn't have a Special. A Special came after the fact, thanks to Starline. So we have a 41 Special. You see, it's a little bit shorter than the 41 Magnum. Well, next you have the 44 caliber family of cartridges. Started with the 44 Russian, and if you want to know the history of that, there are videos on my channel about the 44 Russian. But that was black powder, became the 44 Special at the turn of the century, coming with smokeless powder, and then became the 44 Magnum because they lengthened the case to get more power, more powder, and the 44 Magnum needs very little introduction. So today we have the choice of 3 different lengths in the 44, and we're not counting, of course, Super Mag types of calibers and this kind of thing. These are all standard type of loadings. But anyway, there's your 44. But in the 45, we had the 45 Colt and the shorter case, the 45 Schofield. So when Starline introduced the 45 Cowboy Special, well, what could that be? We already have the Schofield, and if you go by what the Schofield is compared to the 44 Special, the 44 Special is only a little tiny bit longer than the 45 Schofield. Surely the thinking of Starline to produce a case that's between these two, there's not a whole lot of difference there. So I was thinking that's what they were coming up with the 45 Cowboy Special. The anticipation ended when Walter Bunning sent me a package of 45 Cowboy Special brass from Starline, and here it is. This is the package of brand new 45 Cowboy Special brass. It's got the Starline head stamp, and when you open it up, they didn't go long between the 45 Colt and the 45 Schofield. They went short, kind of like the 44 Russian. Or in this case, it's actually kind of like the 45 ACP. So this is like a rimmed 45 ACP. In fact, you can use 45 ACP loading data to load this. Well, wait a minute though. We already have a 45 rimmed ACP. It's called a 45 auto rim. What's the difference between this and the 45 auto rim? So here's what we're talking about. 45 Colt, 45 Schofield, the brand new 45 Cowboy Special, and then here is a loaded 45 auto rim round. And notice that the length of the 45 auto rim and the new 45 Cowboy Specials almost the same. Very interesting. So what are the differences and why is there a good validity to this new brass? That's the question. Well, it turns out that the 45 auto rim was developed because back in the First World War, the need for the moon clips, the little 2-round moon clips to load the 1917 revolvers, the 45 caliber revolvers, was developed so that you could load this round into those revolvers without needing the clips, the moon clips. The moon clips allowed the 45 ACP automatic cartridge to be loaded in a revolver, and that would headspace on the clip, and that was fine. But with the 45 auto rim, they had to create the proper thickness of the rim to equate to the moon clips that were being used for the automatic pistol rounds in the 1917 Colt and 1917 Smith & Wesson revolvers used in World War I. So this rim is pretty thick. In fact, a word for it would be robust. But it was done that way for headspace reasons. Now, compared to the rims on the 45 Colt and 45 Schofield, this rim is a monster. And what it causes is that you cannot use the 45 auto rim in 45 Colt revolvers. In fact, you can't use it either in the Ruger convertible 45 ACP cylinder. And here's the reason why. If you take the 45 auto rim round and try and put it into the 45 ACP cylinder for the Black Hawk convertible, the round goes in, no problem. Except when you try and rotate the cylinder, the rim is so thick that it jams up against the breech face, and so the cylinder is all tied up, it can't turn. Now I'm not going to show you that, because if I do that, the only way I can take that out of there is by taking the cylinder out, and that would slow down the video. So that won't work in the 45 ACP cylinder. Now, if you take a 45 Colt gun and load the 45 auto rim in, lo and behold, the chamber is fine. It'll headspace on the rim. The problem is the rim is too thick to again allow the rounds to function in the space between the breech face and the front of the cylinder, or the back of the cylinder. So again, it jams up. And if you want to have that work, you've got to mill down the back of the cylinder. But the problem then is, when you load 45 Colts, then you're causing problems with excessive headspace, because you've created more space for the 45 Colt rim to go forward, and there's more gap in there, and that's bad for the 45 Colt, so you can't do it. Well, for many years, shooters of 45 Colts and 45 ACP and 45 Colt convertibles really wish that we could use the 45 auto rim because it's really a cute round. It's really a revolver 45 ACP. And we would have liked to have used these, but not easily done. Because the new 45 Cowboy Special has the same rim as the 45 Colt, the fact that the case is shorter is immaterial. The headspace is controlled by the rim, the same headspace that the 45 Colt has. So this will readily go into any 45 Colt. As you see, and it'll function just perfectly. And we can load it, see how it falls right out, and we can load it with 45 ACP loading data, so we are in business. This is like a short 45 Colt, and we can load up to 45 ACP plus P velocities for that kind of use easily and perfectly with this brass. Very useful. But since we can look at this case as being like a 45 ACP rimmed without the thick rim of the 45 auto rim case, can we go ahead and use this in our 45 ACP cylinder? Now, if we try to use this in a 1917 revolver, what will happen is you'll have excessive headspace, because what happens, you'll put it in and it'll go right to the case, the front of the cylinder, the back of the cylinder, but then there'll be excessive gap between the rim and the back of the breech face. If you try and load this into a 45 ACP cylinder, there's a problem. In my particular cylinder, maybe not yours, but the case doesn't go all the way into the chamber because it hits the shoulder in there, and it sticks out just far enough that if you try and turn this cylinder, it locks up. So that won't work. We'll be able to use this case in our 45 Colts, but not in our 45 ACP convertible cylinders. The problem is that the case is a little too long because it hits the shoulder in there, and we want something like a 45 ACP case. We can shorten this just a little bit, and then it'll fit into the cylinder. Well, we're not going to shorten it as much as a 45 gap, of course, but the 45 gap is actually a very useful round also. It'll shoot 45 ACP standard and plus P velocities with a shorter case, because it turns out that the 45 ACP case is actually a little bit more volume than is necessary for the velocities that the 45 ACP is being shot. So we're not shortening it that much, and we're shortening maybe a couple hundredths. So what that means is that we still have a pretty long case compared to a 45 gap, a little shorter than the 45 ACP. So let's go ahead and take some of our brass and shorten it a little bit and see if it'll work in our 45 ACP cylinder. If it does, we'll have a case that we can use in both the 45 Colt and the 45 ACP interchangeably for these cylinders. So what we have determined is that when we go ahead and lock in one of our 45 Cowboy Special brass into our Lyman case trimmer, and we go ahead and trim this case back to 0.872 inches, that then this brass will feed very nicely into the 45 ACP cylinder of our Ruger convertible Blackhawks, and this allows the cylinder to turn and function, and we can load this ammo not just for use in the 45 Colt cylinder, but also the 45 ACP cylinder. And in fact, the ACP cylinder may be even better because it has a little shoulder in there that the bullet will then enter the chamber throat, the cylinder throat, nicely. So the original length was 0.893. And so we're taking it down to 0.872. So by shortening this case, we're going to get more compact ammunition and still get very good velocity for the range of velocity that we want. We're not looking for magnumizing or plus P, this kind of thing. We're looking for standard velocity with a more compact case. And this should give us that very nicely and allow us to have very good use of the 45 ACP cylinder for our convertible Blackhawk. So the trimming procedure, take one of our 45 Cowboy Special brass casings, place it in the universal shell holder of the Lyman case trimmer, lock it, and then go ahead and engage the pilot, and then go ahead and trim that. Put another one in, engage the pilot, lock, and then trim. And you see the brass shavings coming off. Now then it free spins, as you see. That means you've got the length that you want, and this will give you a repeatable, very accurate trimming. There you see it's free spinning again, and there it is. Now we go ahead and mic this, and you'll see that it is 872. We'll show you that. Get that in focus, come on. Well, you can see it's 872. So you see it's 872. And they're all like that. Very nice, accurate case trimming by the Lyman case trimmer. Now I keep all of my other pilots plus the additional trimmers, the little cutters. I have extra cutters and all the necessary Allen wrenches, all kept in this nice plastic bag, so anytime I need to use my case trimmer, I've got everything I need right there at my fingertips. So not only do the cases drop right in, to the 45 ACP cylinder, but the cylinder spins freely and the brass falls or tins fall right out, as you see. And of course we deburr and chamfer all of these cases. The next video will be the actual loading of our new 45 Cowboy Special brass. Bye for now.